kicking off this week's episode of the podcast with the song Low Tide, High Tide. It's from the band The Tentakills. It's from their album Rage of Aquarius. You can find them on Bandcamp by going to taboorecordings.bandcamp.com or follow the link in the show notes over at monsterkidradio.net. I know I just recently played them, but I wanted to play them again this week here on the show because they've got an upcoming performance happening at Scoop Waukegan 2025. It's happening in downtown Waukegan, Illinois on Saturday, July 12th. They're going to be at the Side Street Stage at 2:30 p.m. Central. They've got 2 sets happening there. I recommend you go check them out and check out the rest of the festivities happening at Waukegan's Hot Rod Holiday Scoop Waukegan. You can learn more about this over on Facebook at the Scoop Waukegan 2025 event page, or again, check out the Tentakills. You can find them also on Facebook. I'll make sure there's links in the show notes. This is Derek M. Cook, and you're listening to The Bride of Monster Kid Radio, the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. And we are kicking off another month of themed programming here on the show. This is KaiJuly 2025, where we're going to be talking about nothing but kaiju movies for the next 4 weeks. Well, I guess the next 3 weeks after this week. 4 weeks of kaiju goodness here on the podcast. I'm so excited. My own personal journey when it comes to being a fan of all things kaiju is quite different than the journey that took me down the path of becoming a monster kid. I've talked about this on various episodes of the podcast in the past. I really didn't dive into kaiju films whole hog the way that I have until I moved to the Pacific Northwest and I got to see a screening of King Kong vs. Godzilla at the Hollywood Theater, hosted by Kyle Yount of the late lamented Kaiju Cast. This was an eye-opening experience and made me love kaiju movies so much. In fact, if I had more time in the day or I didn't need to do that whole pesky sleep thing, I'd launch my own kaiju podcast. I love it so much. So I'm really happy to devote this month to the kaiju films that I love dearly. And I love sharing these movies with the woman that I love dearly. Beth is joining me this week here on the show. Now, I know that those of you who do follow me on Patreon, either as a paid patron or as a free member, know that I may have promoted something different for this week's episode of the podcast. Well, don't worry. Sometime later this month, we are going to have Brian Clark on the show for the debut episode of something that I'm calling Pick Your Poison. Stay tuned for more information about that. Instead, this week, we have Beth joining me, and we're going to take a look at a Mothra film from 1996, The Rebirth of Mothra. This is a first-time watch for me. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I have Beth here on the show in a little bit. Before we get to all of that, though, I have a little bit of feedback. So why don't we hear from Marlo?
Hello, Bride of Monster Kid Radio. It's Marlo calling back. I wanted to let you know how much I enjoyed episode 32. And I thought that Beth's idea for a month on beach monster movies sounded great. Something else that you might include on your endless summer of monster movies would be a month on maybe rock and roll monster movies or car culture monster movies like the giant Gila monster or something along those lines. And other than that, I just want to let you know, as always, how much I enjoy your contributors. Both Ken and Mark do a fantastic job. And inspired by Mark, I looked up Shin Ultraman, and I think I'm going to be enjoying that very soon. And thanks again. It's a great show, and I'll keep listening. Bye.
Thanks for calling in. I appreciate the feedback. In fact, listeners, if you want to be cool like Marlo, all you got to do is contact me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 360-524-2484. Marlo, I love the idea of devoting some time to like car culture movies. The drive-in experience is wrapped up in car culture from the 50s and 60s, and so many of our favorite monster movies come from this era. You mentioned the giant Gila monster. I'm a big fan of Ghosts of Ragstrip Hollow. I'd love to run that on the show at some point. I've never talked about that movie. At one point we were going to talk about it with somebody else, but that's been years, and I'd love to have him on to talk about it. You know who I'm talking about. Reach out to me. Anyway, I would love to talk about some of these movies in depth a bit more. The car culture movies, especially of the 50s, even if there aren't monsters in them, are pretty cool. I enjoy them quite a bit. I find myself loving the low-budget movies of the 50s and 60s so much more than a lot of the films available now, of the modern era. There's just something about them that's special. Well, thanks for sending a message. I know that Mark listens to the show, and I know that Kenny listens to the show, so they're bound to hear your kudos as well. Speaking of Kenny, dude, let's get you back on the show at some point, man. I'd love to have you back on, either as a segment producer or just as a guest. It'd be a lot of fun to do it. I do know that Kenny has been talking about maybe making the trip up here to Arizona to do some things, and if that happens, I'm getting him on the show. And Mark, well, we've got him this week as well, as we are nearing the end of his coverage of Ultraman Ace. It's been a ride. It's been a real ride. Ultraman Ace, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, it has become my second favorite Ultraman series. I absolutely love it. Speaking of Ultraman, my understanding is, and I haven't checked yet, but my understanding is that a new Ultraman series has launched on the official Subaraya Productions YouTube channel. By the time this episode is over, I will have looked into that, and we'll talk about that at the end of this episode, because I want to do something kind of special to celebrate that. If that has already started, well, stay tuned for that. I've got a lot of things coming up here on the show, but you know what? I've had the Tentakills playing here for a little while. Let's give them a little bit of a break. We're going to go to Mark Matzke, and then we're going to go to Beth and Mothra right after this.
King Kong, the horror picture of all time.
Don't let him get me!
A beautiful girl torn from the arms of her lover by a jungle beast. King Kong.
See a battle between prehistoric monsters on an island time forgot.
A nightmare jungle creature from the primeval past stalking midnight streets.
My baby! It's got my baby!
See the thrill classic of all time, the biggest gorilla picture ever made in motion picture history. The jungle epic that can never be duplicated.
See RKO's original...
King Kong.
King Kong!
King Kong.
Konga. Not since King Kong has the screen exploded with such mighty fury. Defying bullets, bombs, rockets, standing 100 feet tall, sending an entire civilization into panic. Konga, in color and spectramation.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 46, Ride Over the Time Machine. Terrible monster Dai Darahusai drops from the sky and immediately goes on a rampage, eliciting a fiery response from Tak. The creature vanishes, only to reappear 100 kilometers north of the battle site. When Dai Darahusai disappears again, one of the Tak jets is pulled into another dimension. Yoshimura and Mikoa find themselves in the distant past, attacked by bandits, but are able to make radio contact with Captain Ryu. Tak meets with an official from Haruki Laboratories who's been working on time travel, but the group is warned of the risks it poses. Confronting the terrible monster again, the remaining Tak members are pulled through time, where they locate their teammates in the Nara period, where they're being stoned to death. Ryu and Hokuto attempt to rescue, but when the captain is rendered unconscious, Hokuto is forced to fend for himself on an alternate timeline. Ride Over the Time Machine, which premiered February 16, 1973, is somewhat reminiscent of last week's episode in that it excels in visual spectacle, but suffers from an underdeveloped plot. That's unfortunate, because a time travel episode with more consequence could have been a lot of fun with this TAC team. As it stands, precious little information is given about the culture that nearly kills members of TAC, nor what might be causing the time jumps. And while Daidar Husai is discussed as a folkloric character, no explanation for the monster's actions or behavior is offered. It doesn't help matters that the terrible monster's design verges on silly, a look enhanced by his habit of sprinting from place to place with a prancing gait. Nevertheless, episode 46 offers nearly non-stop action and a seemingly endless bag of tricks that Ace uses to dispatch with his enemies. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force. While Kong is a thinking animal. His brain is considerably larger, about 10 times the size of this gorilla's skull. Being instinctive rivals, there's no doubt that they will attempt to destroy one another.
King Kong versus Godzilla, heading for their colossal collision, shattering every obstacle that stands between them in the most fantastic rampage of annihilation ever recorded on film. See King Kong stamp Tokyo into the ground, holding a beautiful girl in his grasp. See Godzilla destroy an entire army. See King Kong trapped by the blazing barrier of 1 billion volts. But nothing, nobody can stop the great showdown when King Kong and Godzilla meet to fight for survival of the fittest.
The fantastic duel of the century, the most ferocious battle in history. The flesh and blood King Kong fights his most incredible enemy, a 60-foot robot King Kong forged of super steel. King Kong escapes. All new, all thrilling in Technicolor. King Kong battles missiles, monsters, and a King Kong of steel. King Kong escapes. A Toho Company limited picture, a universal release.
Hey, before I get into talking about Rebirth of Mothra with Beth, two things have come up that I wanted to talk about. Since I started working on the show this week, we got another voicemail. So I'm going to play that right here.
Hey Derek, this is my first time calling in. But anyway, I just clocked off my night shift job in a boring erosion control plant and decided I'd call in and say June 28th, which was last Saturday, I was actually able to go see Dr. Gangrene live. A show he saw Devil's Partner from 1962, which I had never seen before and actually quite liked. There's a character actor in that film who played the role at Papers. And I think his name is Byron Folger. I actually remember him from quite a few films. One of them is Black Raven, which also has Lord Zuko in it. And the whole time I was wondering who he was, and I finally figured out that's who he was. But yeah, my first time in 23 years on this planet, I was finally able to go do something classic horror, and I was so happy. I drove a whole 2 hours and 30 minutes there and back. It was pretty fun. We took a wrong turn and got lost and rode through some skyscrapers, and I had a panic attack, but I found my way back home, so everything was all good. I definitely will go back to see him again. It was awesome. Anyway, I hope you have a great night, and talk to you later.
So that voicemail came from a first-time caller. As he said, his name's Wyatt. And he actually shared some other information with me as well that I kind of want to sit on right now because I want to reach out to Wyatt and maybe talk to him a little bit more. So Wyatt, thanks for calling in. And I actually really like Revolt of the Zombies as well. I'm a huge fan of pre-George Romero zombie cinema. Revolt of the Zombies, Revenge of the Zombies, Zombies of Morital. I love these films, and I don't talk about zombies enough here. You know what? Do we need to do another theme month here on the show? Do some sort of zombie thing? Zombie... Dead-cember? Undead-cember? I don't know, something. But I'd like to do more zombie movies here on the show. And, you know, I don't know if you are aware, Wyatt, or other listeners, I'm sure I've talked about it, but I used to do a zombie movie podcast, and I was always a big fan and a proponent of these more classic zombie movies. Yes, I love Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite movies. I really love the Romero stuff too, but there's just something special about a black and white zombie movie, man. In fact, I kind of want to put together a big zombie loop of stuff to play on the Twitch channel. Revolt of the Zombies, Revenge of the Zombies, and so on. So stay tuned for that. Wyatt, thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it, man. And we'll be in touch. Definitely be in touch. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that Monster Kid Radio, Bride of Monster Kid Radio, has been approved for a press pass for Gathering of the Ghouls 2025. Gathering of the Ghouls is the convention put on by the Terror Trader, which is a horror retail shop in Tempe, Arizona. This is happening September 20th and 21st, 2025 at the Rawhide Event Center in Chandler, Arizona. You can learn more about them at gatheringoftheghouls.com. Now, this just happened, so we don't have a lot of information like press releases or anything like that, but you can bet that when we get more information from them, I'm going to make sure that you have that information too. And again, as I say with every single convention that we go to or event that we go to, if you're going to be in the area, we would love to meet you at Gathering of the Ghouls, September 20th and 21st in Chandler, Arizona. Oh, and hey, to get back to something that Wyatt was talking about, I think that's super cool that he went to go see Dr. Gangrene's live show. I've never been to a Gangrene live show. Dr. Gangrene, Larry Underwood, he's a dear friend of mine. He's a Monster Kid Radio irregular. I've met him in person once at a Monster Bash, but, I've been friends with him for years. Even when I was getting Monster Kid Radio launched and up and running, he was there supporting me and supporting the show. He's a great guy. I am so jealous that you got to see him in a live capacity, to see his live show and to see a movie that I've never seen. I've never seen The Devil's Partner. I checked out the trailer, though, as soon as I got your voicemail, and that looks really cool. And I'm going to have to add that movie to my to-watch list. And if Gangrene was showing it, that movie must be in the public domain, which means that I can get away with showing it on my Twitch stream at some point. So thanks, Wyatt, for giving me an idea for a couple of things to show online and maybe talk about here on a future episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio.
Your uncle didn't die from natural causes. In fact, he may have been murdered.
Murdered?
A town terrorized by an unknown killer. And the killer hunt is on. Is it the village belle? Or her sweetheart? Is it the beloved doctor? Or the town drunk? Could it be the accommodating waitress? Or the stranger?
What's your secret?
Promise not to tell anyone?
Sure. Well, I'm really the devil.
But whoever the stranger is, he's raising the devil in town. And the devil's partner is busy, too.
It's me!
A blood-marked trail will take you into shocking terror. Half man, half beast. He sold his soul to the devil.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned. And don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
The Heisei era is a really interesting era for the kaiju films. I find it to be really interesting when we look at two big Gs when it comes to these films, because you've got Godzilla and then you've got Gamera. Now, Godzilla turns into a pretty tight-knit continuity, starting with Godzilla 1984, or The Return of Godzilla, or Godzilla 1985, whatever it was. But that kind of kicked off this new series, pretty much ignoring everything that had happened in all the previous Godzilla movies, with the exception of the very first one, which does get referenced a few times. And then it's its own series from there, each film following the next one, a relatively tight continuity. Gamera goes from being a series of movies that get increasingly more and more childlike and for the kids to a really violent, over-the-top, and really good trilogy with the Gamera films that ignores everything that had happened before. And they become their own tight continuity as well, but they are pretty tough. They're rough. You get shots from the ground of Gamera fighting a kaiju, and the flames and the exhaust all over the place and bodies flying in the air. The collateral damage is insane. So now there's this hole for kid-friendly kaiju movies.
And unlike that introduction, we're going to talk about one today that does pass the Bechdel test. Rebirth of Mothra.
Which is where I was going with this. Mothra comes in, swoops in, flies in.
Quite literally.
And becomes this family-friendly fantasy film. Which
somewhere in a crossover between Land of the Lost, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
Fern Gully,
and and all your typical kaiju of the past.
It's such a weird film, and I know that I've said repeatedly on the show that I had gone down the kaiju road and watched all of them. Once I decided I love kaiju movies, I got to watch them all.
But
I apparently skipped the 3 Rebirth of Mothra films. I don't know why. I even own them on Blu-ray, for crying out loud.
Well, you were in college. Maybe you had stuff you were doing.
No, it wasn't college. It was much later than that.
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe I vaguely remember trying to start one and thinking, well, these are kids. If I want that, I'll watch Gamera.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You didn't give it enough time.
I didn't give it enough time. So this was a first-time watch for me, and definitely a first-time watch for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know how I love my girl Mothra, so.
Mothra, I think, it's safe to say, your favorite?
Yeah, I think Mothra's my favorite kaiju, definitely.
More than Godzilla, more than all the others.
As much as I love individual features of some of the others, or powers, and Godzilla as a whole is kind of the big zaddy of the kaiju, if you will. No, Mothra's my girl. I like the big mama.
Mothra's pretty awesome, and it is Mothra, the character, he or she, and we'll talk about that, is the second most popular kaiju out of the Toho catalog of kaiju films. And I'm curious now, with the listeners in particular, I don't feel like this series gets talked about a lot. So I'm curious if the listeners have seen Rebirth of Mothra, 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
And what their thoughts are. We're going to share our thoughts on it.
One.
Yeah, on the first one at least.
And then depending, we'll probably put it up to you guys, depending on feedback. I think I would be up for watching 2 and 3, especially because of some points we're going to talk about here as we go along. But we'll kind of leave it up to you guys. If it's something after this review you'd like to hear more about, then we will. And if not, maybe it's just something we do for ourselves or as an extra. But I think if you come along with us, you might find that you have a new favorite family-friendly trilogy here. I don't know.
This one, well, so far, I mean, we haven't watched 2 or 3 yet ourselves, but this one seemed to really deliver. It did start to stumble a little bit about 2/3 of the way through for me, and we can talk about that too.
There were a few little oopsies, yeah.
And overall, though, I thought it was pretty fun, and the special effects were pretty much on par with the other Heisei-era Godzilla movies that I had seen.
Well, and really with just about anything else being made at that time. I mean, I think if you look at some of what was clearly puppetry work, it's very similar to some of the stuff done during, like, Phantom Menace and other, like, it is. If you look at it, some of the additional puppetry work in that is of a similar nature, and using both puppetry and CGI and, people in a suit and combinations of those is kind of a trademark of that era, whether we're talking about kaiju or Star Wars or Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Starting to mix those mediums and see and play around with what can we do with this stuff as the CGI era became a thing. That's something of interest, at least to me. How well did they do it? Where did they do it well? Where did they not deliver? And what could they have done better?
I hadn't considered this in terms of what was happening in the U.S. film industry at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you bring up Star Wars and all that, this is what, 96?
This is delivered in 96, and we know Star Wars is being made at that time because it came out in 99. So, Episode 1.
Yeah. Well, it was directed by Okihiro Yoneda, who is no stranger to kaiju. He had worked on some other Heisei, I'm going to get that wrong every time, Heisei-era films like Godzilla vs. Destroyer, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but he was also involved in one of my favorite Japanese films of all time, and that would be Ron, which is basically, it's Akira Kurosawa's film, and it's just stellar. It's one that I'd love to watch with you at some point because it's got a lot of Shakespearean stuff going on in it.
I'd love that.
Yeah, but so this is a guy who had worked in the kaiju factory before.
Mm-hmm.
He no stranger to Toho at all.
Sure.
And he handles it about as well as you probably could because for the most part it feels like a family film. But then it starts to get kind of dark and intense as we go along.
It gets a little serious as we really get into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah. So the film does what a lot of Mothra films do, and that's present a threat to the environment as a reason for Mothra and company to get involved.
And that threat to the environment releases a monster that then has to be combated. And we also get to see different forms of Mothra through larvae and full flight form and everything.
We see Mothra in every stage of evolution, basically. So before Shin Godzilla did it, Mothra's giving us multiple stages of evolution of its kaiju form.
Which is also interesting if you think about 1996, that this is really in a lot of the ramp up of Pokemon and things evolving. And I know, spoilers if you haven't seen them at all, but one of the things that happens during the second and third film is several evolutions of Mothra.
Oh,
changing forms.
Did you read ahead?
Just from the back cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's just a known thing, that there are going to be several changes as it literally evolves up. which is very Pokemon-like, which is very much 1996. I remember with my younger sister getting her Pokemon cards and stuff, and I'll confess me doing that a bit too.
I was gonna say, you can't fool me. I've seen your old collection of Pokemon cards.
But yeah, kind of all tied together, and I remember also, in this case, it really was my little sister babysitting her and her friends watching Power Rangers and the monsters evolving up, and even the Power Rangers themselves, in some case, had evolutions and things. So it's very much what was going on in children's television at the time.
Sure. Now, this evolution of Mothra, I mean, this is something that we'd seen in the Showa era, of course, with larva versions and. It's spending a lot of time.
Well, we'd seen lifespan, but I don't think we'd seen the evolution where each form changes.
Good point. Okay, there's a difference there. You're right. So we got this threat to the environment happening. There's this very unhappy family. We've got a father who is not home.
For the bad company threatening the environment,
And his wife, the mother, the matriarch of the family, and he are not getting along. The two kids, the brother-sister, are definitely not getting along. And through the course of the film, it's kind of very projected. You know what's going to happen here at the end of the movie. And literally, at one point, one character has to be saved by the other three all reaching out together to grab them.
The power of familial love, and the power of siblingship, and the power of tragedy or danger to bring people back together and make you realize what's really important and what your priorities are. There's a lot of that in it.
It's very projected and very on the nose, but for this kind of movie, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's that fantasy, family-friendly film that it is promising to be. It's on the tin, basically. So you've got this company doing massive logging operations. Is that what it was?
A lot of logging, yes.
And they find the symbol that looks a lot like it is the Mothra symbol that we're used to seeing.
That's on sort of like a medallion or something on this big rock formation.
And when he pops that off to take home to his daughter, he releases the bad guy.
He pops the seal.
Yeah, he breaks the seal. And suddenly we have two Shobijin, our good fairy girls, and our one bad Shobijin, Belvira. And she's got this little dragon called
Goro
that she's riding around, and it looks really cool. You even made the comment.
He's so cute.
He's very cute.
He's like evilly cute.
You made the comment that he looked like something out of Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and it really does.
Yeah.
He really does.
Very much the expressions, the way the tail and the limbs moved on it, which, again, it's that era.
Yeah. And you've got this character, this woman riding it and flying along, and they're doing, and she's miniature because she's a Shobijin. She's little, and she's interacting with the big world and doing things and interacting with the two children and terrorizing them.
Really a tremendous amount of green screening and layering of film and things like that in this one.
Yeah, and you've got that happening while you've got the other two good Shobijin, who are Mal and Laura, working with Mothra and
writing a very small version with different coloring called Fairy.
Now, I looked into Fairy a little bit.
Okay.
One of my favorite Godzilla Heisei films is Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, which I know a lot of people don't like. A lot of people think it's one of the lesser of that Heisei era. I love it. I think Space Godzilla is cool. I love the music. It's so cool. And supposedly Theory turns up in that. I don't remember that. That's how much of an impact it made on me. So I guess I have to go back and watch Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla again. But we got Theory on here, which is like a mini version of Mothra. Mm-hmm. Slightly different color, makes slightly different noises, and definitely small enough for two Shobijin to ride the way that Belvira is riding her dragon.
It actually seems to be very perfectly sized so that the Shobijin can ride it the way that a human could ride Mothra. It's a very similar
scale.
Scale, yes.
Yeah. Yep. And so they're running around trying to stop Belvira from releasing the big monster.
I guess Fairy is Shobijin scale. That's what you would say.
There you go. There you go. And what is the big monster that's about to be released?
The big monster is Desghidorah.
I've seen a few places online where it's referred to as Death Ghidorah. I don't like that. I mean,
and what I'm finding in Japanese says Desghidorah, and what I heard, and our oldest daughter has studied Japanese for nearly a decade, so, you pick things up. It was definitely Des. It wasn't Death. I understand sometimes TH and S get interchanged with the Japanese language and the way that things are put together. But in this case, I really think it's Des Ghidorah, not Death Ghidorah.
And I've seen Des Ghidorah in the Kaiju game that I play on my iPad that I'm still playing and always looking for new friends to play with. Hint, hint. And Des Ghidorah does some pretty cool stuff, but I didn't know anything about it other than, well, that must be from, I don't know. I thought maybe it was from one of the anime that was on Netflix or something like that. No, it's from this. And Des Ghidorah is kind of awesome. It is part of the Ghidorah family. And I did read ahead a little bit too. Apparently there are a number of Ghidorah threats through the rest of the trilogy. But
yes, I thought you'd like that.
Des Ghidorah is a darker colored Ghidorah, 4 legs instead of 2. A lot more draconic, I felt like, and mean and tough.
Yeah, it's not bipedal.
No.
So it's a much more grounded, tanky Ghidorah, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And once Des Ghidorah is released, then Mothra's got to get involved. What do we find out about Des Ghidorah? What did Des Ghidorah do?
Des Ghidorah killed all the dinosaurs. It's a space alien, and when it came to Earth, it killed all the dinosaurs, and then a whole fleet of giant Mothras, because apparently there were tons and tons and tons back in the day, had to get together to defeat it and seal it underground.
Yep.
With the medallion, where it remained safely until some dumb humans dug it up.
Still don't really know why Bolivera wanted to wreak havoc. I don't understand what her motivations were other than she's evil and she laughs a lot.
There was definitely some hint of humans having betrayed her at some point in the past, and I'm wondering if it will be touched on later in the series.
That's a good point. That does come up towards the end of the movie when after she's been defeated, she's like trying to get that last dig in. Don't trust those humans, sisters. They'll betray you.
Well,
right.
And her sisters seem sympathetic to her attitudes. Not that they agree with her, but they understand why she is the way she is, which tells me something happened. As usual, it's going to be humans' fault.
Yeah, I mean...
like I've seen human history. That tracks. That's fine.
That totally tracks. Yeah. We get some really cool fights, kaiju fights, interspersed with...
different kinds of fights, too, which is neat. Yeah.
And, Mothra's always been an odd one for me, because I feel like when it comes to all the kaiju, not talking about Jet Jaguar or the robots, when it comes to the natural creations, the animals that turn into kaiju or whatever, they're all lizard, they're all reptilian, they're all scaly. Mothra has always stood out to me because Mothra's base is not a lizard, but a bug.
Yeah.
An insect. And for that reason, I've always had a hard time accepting Mothra as part of the pack.
Okay.
And she's never been one of my favorites.
All right.
I think she's cool. Don't get me wrong.
She is literally the queen of the monsters. I mean, that's what Kaijuly ga Kaiju means, which is her formal name, Queen of the Monsters. So,
but where I'm going with this is that this movie made me care about Mothra in a way that I've never cared about Mothra before. She gets her fuzzy little insect butt handed to her more than once,
and she's Mama Bear.
Yeah.
At some point, she's protecting different characters at different times, and she's very obviously Mothra is always protective and sort of mother-like, but in this case she's not just mothering the earth, she's protecting the different characters, even the dumb humans who did naughty things.
Right. I mean, there are 2 little kids that are like trying to help her out the way that the kids would help Gamera out in the Gamera films, and I was really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Des Ghidorah even like steps on her and kind of grinds her into the ground at one point.
That was something that there's a moment where, he's stomping along. He's a little more stompy than regular King Ghidorah or whatever.
Yeah.
But when he does step on her wing, then the foot just twists back and forth like 5 or 6 times to where you're like, that's on purpose, man. That's not just I'm big and I'm destroying things. I'm not just rampaging a city and buildings are getting caught in the way. I'm doing this on purpose.
I've made a choice.
I'm going to take you down and I want it to hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've always thought Mothra was cool and all that. She's just never been one of my favorites. But this one, and I don't know if it just took her taking not just an L, but a huge loss.
Yes.
Because I've seen her go out before. You know, the story of Mothra is that she does eventually die and a new one is reborn.
Right. She's very Phoenix-like in that way.
That's the deal, which is funny you bring that up because at one point they had talked about doing a Mothra versus Phoenix film.
Oh, okay.
Which would have been an interesting choice.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, considering where the story of the Phoenix comes from. Would have been cool. But anyway, so the story of Mothra is that one dies, a new one is reborn. She's a legacy hero, right? So it's not unexpected. But to see her trying so hard to protect her offspring, which is a premature born Mothra larva, the kids, the Earth itself, and to see her trying so hard at the very end and then struggling and eventually drowning.
Yeah.
It was hard, man. It was really difficult for me.
It's a little dark, yeah.
It was a little dark. So that whole family film thing, it's still there at the end, but, you know, maybe it's a cultural thing. As an American watching it, it hit my heartstrings a little bit differently than it may have hit a Japanese audience in the 90s.
I don't know. I think in a way, you know, the death of Mothra is sitting there almost as a substitute for the death of the planet to say, like, you know, look how bad you feel about this. You're going to feel so much worse.
Right.
When all of this beautiful land and resources and everything is gone, when all these forests and mountains are just not here anymore. And so I think it actually is a nice analogy, if you will, and maybe is meant to extort that level of feeling from audiences.
Maybe. And I know Godzilla has tackled the environmental issues, Godzilla versus Hedorah, you know, in the past, to mixed results. But this one really, I think, got me more than some of the other ones had. And I respect the film for that. I'm not going to say, yay, I'm sad. I'm going to say, yay, what an effective bit of filmmaking to make me feel that about something that is clearly a bunch of felt.
And the character's death is treated very respectfully, I would say. And
I was thinking this is bordering on the death of the first Godzilla with the oxygen destroyer in the water. You know, with the music and the bubbles and the somber tone and everything going on. I felt like it was bordering on that.
Yeah.
Which, again, masterful filmmaking. It really was. Plus, you had the larva Mothra there witnessing the whole thing.
Yeah, I was definitely having some Simba Mufasa flashbacks there, you know, of like,
Dad,
Mom.
Yeah. Yeah, so you had all that going on, too. And it is called the Rebirth of Mothra.
It is.
And we can't have a world without a Mothra in it. So that larva does turn into a new Mothra.
Mothra Leo.
Mothra Leo.
Also known as Shin Mothra.
Shin Mothra? Really?
That is what I'm getting from Wikizilla.
Interesting. Okay. So some places are saying Mothra Leo's a dude. But in the film, they still say...
Is what Wikizilla is saying also. But in the film, the character is referred to as she, both in the English subtitling and in the honorifics being, and some of the wording being used in the Japanese. So,
well, and in order for the whole thing to work, she's got to be a she to lay an egg later, right?
Well, that's true too.
So yes. there is that. But if it is a male moth, I appreciate that they made it look different from the original Mothra in the film because. There is a difference. Most moths, there is a difference in look and body structure between the male and female.
Well, and we were talking about the antenna. I looked up. There's a difference in that too. So I thought they made the antenna different.
Yeah, they didn't just reuse the suit. They didn't just pull it out of the water, dry it off, and call it good. They made a new suit.
Whereas, I think the feet may have been reused or something.
Maybe the feet.
Or they were made similarly. And so that was fine. But the coloring is different. The
antenna are different.
Eyes are different. It's the body shape is even a little bit different.
The body shape's a little chunkier. The wing coloring is really cool.
It's a little more camouflage.
It's a little more camouflage, which makes sense because there is that one moment in the film where
the larva is able to camouflage itself and be basically like invisibility cloak.
Right. And Mothra Leo's in my kaiju game as well. But again, I just assumed Mothra Leo is from one of these other animated Godzillas that it also pulls from that I haven't watched.
Okay.
So I didn't know what to expect going into this at all. It was cool to see where these come from. You had, while we were watching it, there was something that happened that stuck in my mind. When the larva is first born and it comes out of the egg, you went, ooh, slimy. I love it.
It was appropriately slimy. And as it was slurping along the ground, there was slime moving. And I appreciate that.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
If you're going to have something be a bug, have it be a bug and do it right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And little details on the larva, this little hook that's at the end of the main body structure that is indeed there on moths. And so that was nice that they, were respectful of that.
He also commented on the children in the film.
I thought they both did an excellent job.
We had Kazuki Futami as the little boy, Taiki. And Maya Fujisawa as Wakaba, the little girl.
I thought they both did an excellent job. They both had some kind of weird and interesting things they had to do, like the little girl being sort of possessed at one time, and the boy having to really take on both a naughty little boy and a much more respectful, grown-up type brother attitude.
Exactly.
And also, kind of, yes, have the child wonderment, but not quite as much as his little sister, a little bit less than the little sister. So they both did a really excellent job and really carried their parts well through the film, I thought.
You had asked me if they had done anything else. It doesn't look like they had done much of anything else. In fact, the little girl is only credited for this. The little boy has a few other TV episodes and such in the 90s, but not a lot. Although it looks like he was in one of the Super Sentai shows.
Okay, well, cool.
So good for him.
I also, as part of the acting, because it's something I've done a little bit of, and I know other actors who have done some, and I'm very interested in this, with the parts that are CGI or green screened or overlaid in any way. They did an excellent job of reacting to whatever tennis ball or object was being held out there to take the place of what would be inserted later. I felt like they were looking at the Peanuts. They were looking at
the Shobijin
and the monsters and all the different things. So I appreciated the work done on that and the care done on that.
You've said this a couple of times. You kept referring to them as the Peanuts. Now, the Peanuts were the two original in the original Mothra film, but the Peanuts were actually a musician group. So
they're really Shobijin.
Yeah.
Although there is these Shobijin do make hint of they are descendants of other Shobijin from the past who were there, who were obviously there long before man and helped the other Mothra defeat Desghidorah long ago. Also, we found out that the half-life of glitter is at least 65 million years.
Mothra and her or his or their glitter.
Which is different colored. Also, differentiation. I appreciated that Mothra Leo has different glitter than Mama Mothra.
Yep. So the person in charge of the special effects was Koichi Kuwakawa. Yeah, I'm sorry, listeners. I don't speak Japanese, and my daughter Jen isn't here to correct me. Koichi Kawakita? Sure. Pretty close. Also, long-time association with these films, worked on a number of the Heisei Godzilla films as well. The quality is there.
Oh, yeah.
It's Toho. I feel like the Heisei films don't get enough love. I don't know why, but I really like the Heisei era of Godzilla films. I think they look great for the 90s. I really do.
I do, yeah. No,
and this looked great.
And they put the quality into the scenery, into the backgrounds, the little apartment home that the family lives in. Everything's, decorated very much like a real home would be. You see the dad at work and the daughter's drawing is like taped up on the wall. And it's very, very real. And they even use real locations that I looked up because I asked you at one point, they talked about, well, where is the larva going? After telling us it was going to be secret. And then they announced on the news, oh, it's going to this island that's a World UNESCO Heritage Site. And indeed, that is actually where they filmed. So that tree that they filmed is the Jomonsugi. And it's a large cryptomeria tree on the island of Yakushima. And it's one of the oldest trees in the world. It's at least 7,200 years old.
That must have been really cool. For a Japanese, is that in Japan? That's in Japan.
It is, yeah. It's in Japan, and it's somewhere where you don't usually get to go. So that had to be really cool to get to go there, and
for audiences to see it.
Yeah, yes,
on the screen. You talked about the decoration of the apartment. Did you catch there was one shot when things are kind of being blown up and all that? They're blowing up like dishes and vases, and then there's like a shelf, and there's a picture of somebody on the shelf. That was a picture of Ashira Honda.
Oh,
the mastermind behind the original Godzilla films.
Oh, that's really nice.
So it was a really nice little
those touches. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I thought that was pretty cool. I think the screams, the roars of the monsters were pretty good. I do want to know what you thought of the new version of the Mothra song.
I kind of liked it. It was very 90s pop music video, which feels right for about the time, and you gotta get the song in there, and Mothra, and it's great. I liked it.
It was fun.
I think Mothra films need a song of some sort in order to pay homage to the original, even if it's just a short little bit.
Yep. I agree. It felt very 90s with the music. Because it's suddenly going to like weird music video land.
Yeah.
Where we've got like this chroma key background fire happening and, they're holding their hands and doing their little dance moves. I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching. This is like one step removed from a really bad karaoke video.
What kind of ancient mushroom dust did Desghidorah just kick up and everybody inhale because, woo, with the pretty colors.
Yeah, but the music overall, you made a comment about the music, and I thought that was cool, because normally I'm the one that makes the comments about the music.
I appreciate a lot of the little sound effects, like the slurping noises when the larva is going along there on the ground. You can hear him sludging along.
Toshiyuki Watanabe was the composer, yes. And Watanabe would do the other... at least Rebirth of Mothra 3. Did they do Rebirth of Mothra 2?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not finding it on the old internet, which of course would never be wrong. But it looks like Watanabe did a lot of anime as well. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'd listen to it again as a standalone. Maybe not as much as I enjoy Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla's score, but
But that's also familiarity. You've listened to that so many times that now it's a thing your brain associates with comfort. And so you can't always... Apples and oranges.
That is so weird that you're absolutely right. Because it's music that I love listening to. I suddenly had this memory pop up into my head. When I lived in Montana, one of my jobs was to work at the Montana State University bookstore in the computer department. And we had 1, 2, 3 computers on and up and running to show as like demos to people.
Mm-hmm.
And one had speakers connected to it. And I would play music on that computer whenever I was working in the department because I wanted music to play.
Okay.
And I'd usually play film scores. And because of who I am, it was usually horror movie scores. And man, you saying that, giving me comfort. I remember I was playing John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, which is a dark horror score, my favorite John Carpenter film, my favorite John Carpenter score. And I remember I went into the back for like 5 minutes for something. When I came out, my coworker, Lindsay, had changed the music. And he was a little bit older than me. He was a musician as well. He played the hammered dulcimer. And when I questioned about it, I was pretty upset. I was like, why'd you turn off my music? Does that kind of music give you joy and make you feel good? Yes. Yes, it does. But I wonder if it's because I've just listened to it so many more times. I'm questioning everything now.
Well, you know.
Huh.
You having a midlife kaiju crisis?
The kaiju crisis. That sounds like a low-budget kaiju film. Oh, I'd watch it in a minute, though. So who am I kidding? I'd watch it in a minute. What else do you want to say about this one?
Oh, gosh. Okay, let me think. Well, I appreciated one of the new sort of powers of Leo Mothra, or Mothra Leo.
Which power was that?
The one where he can explode into like a million little butterflies that can decimate.
Were they butterflies or moths? So make myself moths.
I mean, they're tiny little colorful moths in rainbow colors that can just kind of swarm and decimate other kaiju.
I was having a real Fist of Bats moment with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that, right?
Spiders, man.
No, that's not what I meant by that. In Dracula Untold,
yeah,
that was going to be part of the Dark Universe, but then it failed and it didn't. The Luke Evans film.
Okay.
He's fighting, as Dracula, a whole bunch of other people, and suddenly he exhibits a power that
I've seen it, where he just bats for his head.
And it creates this huge fist that comes down and then slams to the ground, and then never does it again.
Yeah.
It's the Fist of Bats. It makes no sense.
Except for Mothra Leo, it happens when he's transforming. And then it happens again when he's battling. So, and we haven't seen all of him yet. So I think we should wait and see. I don't think it's a never happens again. I don't think it's a Fist of Bats.
So is it Fist of Bats, or like the end of Superman 2 where he suddenly pulls off a plastic wrap S and wraps up a bad guy in it? Who knows?
Who knows? We'll have to see.
But I did like that.
And that'll be up to you all if you want us to or not. So
I think the answer is yes.
I think we're going to watch it.
I think so,
but if you'd like to hear about them.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do it on KaiJuly 2025, but, we'll
see.
We'll see. I know that we are now totally off track. We originally were doing Your Kaiju Education, kaiju films in order of release from Toho. We did the first two Godzillas and Rodan. Next on the list would have been the Mysterians, but I think we decided we're not going to go in order.
I don't think necessarily that we need to go in order on the kaiju. I think in the monsters, that's fine, because that's different. That's showing kind of the evolution of how the thinking about them came about and everything. But I think with the kaiju, it's okay if we go in slightly different orders and taper them more to what we're talking about in that month's theme or what's going on. I did really appreciate all the fireworks in this one, being as it happens to be around 4th of July. So there you go. I think I'd much rather have them on screen than outside my house. So
yeah, so would all of our pets.
Yeah.
I think depending on which ones we're going to do, we should do some in order.
Well, I mean, I think doing this and then 2 and 3 is not a bad idea.
Or if we do the Heisei Godzilla films, we should do those in order because they are tight continuity.
Sure.
But those were also made in the 90s. This was made in the 90s, where people could go and potentially rent them on VHS or DVD. I don't know if DVD was a thing then. Was it? I don't know.
Yeah, well, 96, they were coming around, yeah.
So they could watch the other ones. Whereas in the 60s, the only time you saw Godzilla versus the Thing was when it was in the theater.
Yeah.
The Thing is Mothra, by the way.
I don't.
Okay. So these probably should be watched in order. But yeah, I think we're going to dance around a little bit when we get into them. One of my favorite Mothra movies is GMK. Mm-hmm. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Out Monsters Attack, or something like that. That one's a lot of fun, but it's a complete standalone, not connected to any of the other films.
So I will say there's one thing in this film that was very different from every other kaiju film you have shown me.
What's that?
The human military in no way tried to intervene.
I was thinking that too. This big fight's going on between Mothra and Ghidorah, and nobody's rolling up in a little model tank.
And we have enough time for the larvae to get all the way back to Infant Island, transform, and come back. And yet, nobody's done anything. Except report about it on the news.
Yeah, there's been no military at all. No tanks, no maser cannons, no fighter jets,
How different from our 50s and 60s
right?
kaiju movies, huh?
Right? Yeah, I mean, even in the Godzilla films, the Heisei era Godzilla films, there's organizations and all that ready to go.
No military at all in this one, which does make it a little more family friendly, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It reduces the human violence as much as possible.
That's a good point. I don't remember seeing even a gun.
No. One of the Shobijin knocks her head at one point and is bleeding, but beyond that, and I think there's a few like arm scrapes with the kids and things like that, but that's about it.
Yeah, the bad Shobijin, I think it's like a mouthful of blood at one point.
Yeah.
And Larva Mothra bleeds green.
Yeah, that was interesting.
When
Kind of a shiny ochre green. Yeah.
When Descador
Stomps down. What the heck?
I was terrified. I was like, do not tear it into. Do not tear it into.
There are children watching. And I was like, oh, wait, no, they're not. It's us. But there are children watching.
Right? So, I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. Overall, though.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a fun little romp.
It was. I really enjoyed it, too. And I don't know why this one, and maybe it's because I don't hang out in the right potosphere waters. I don't know why these films don't get talked about more. Well, I can imagine that the third one, anyway, did not get seen in the U.S. for years. It didn't come over here for a very long time. And, you know, in the mid to late 90s, yeah, you know, tape trading is happening and that sort of thing. And you are getting your hands on stuff. It's not like today where you can go online and stream something from Japan if you have the right VPN, or you can order something from some bootlegger and get it sent to you in a week.
Well, I remembering that even with like DVDs coming out, you couldn't necessarily play the Japanese ones here on your American, you know, DVD players. So there's that issue too at that time, and much less ability to get the other kind of player or convert files or do any of that stuff. So yeah, I think maybe you just were not in the right place in your life to see these when they came out. And so the Kaijuverse saved them for you until you could truly appreciate them.
Yeah, I mean, I love these movies. I really do. I love Godzilla films. I love the Kaiju films.
I mean, I'd say when we have grandkids, I'd show them this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm old. Yeah.
Which, if my daughters are listening, better be at least a decade out.
Oh, God. I'll be even older then. Well, no, you already made me feel old when you pointed out that this movie is
like 30 years old.
Which I know is not normally inside the Monster Kid Radio, Bride of Monster Kid Radio wheelhouse. But you know what? It's Mothra. And I'm going to say this. I've said this about Godzilla. I've said this about Gamera. Mothra will always have a home here on the show. Always.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even if...
Best girl, all the way.
Even if they put out a new Mothra movie tomorrow, we'd cover it.
Well, you know I'd be going to see it. Probably in costume.
What would you dress up as?
Oh, the larva, definitely. Do it Heidi Klum style, yeah.
All right, I told you all I would know by the end of this episode. And yeah, the new Ultraman series did just start. Ultraman Omega did just start. Episode 1 just debuted on the official Ultraman Tsuburaya Productions YouTube channel as of this recording a couple of days ago. I haven't watched it yet. I plan on watching it because I'm a sucker for all things Ultraman. In fact, speaking of Ultraman, the day this episode is going out is the birthday of the late Eiji Tsuburaya, the creator of Ultraman, the co-creator of Godzilla, the man who is responsible for basically shaping what we think of when it comes to kaiju films through his work with Godzilla, through Ultraman, and all the other projects and everything else that he did. If not for him, we wouldn't have, I believe, the long-lasting impact that the kaiju films have had, and obviously no Ultraman. So, you know, that's awesome. And to celebrate, I would like to announce that here in the near future, probably later this month, probably on a weekend, we are going to do an Ultraman watch party on Twitch. Now, here's the deal. Ultraman is not in the public domain. I cannot stream Ultraman episodes on Twitch. I just don't have permission to do so. It's all sorts of copyright violations, and honestly, we've been kind of fighting Twitch on some copyright violation stuff in the past, and I don't want to do it again. But I would like to do a watch party. Well, maybe we all can get together. I can turn on the camera, I can turn on the chat, and we can 3, 2, 1 countdown, hit start together on the YouTube and watch the episodes of Ultraman Omega. I think that's probably the best way to do it, but I'm open to suggestions. I just want to do that on Twitch because it's been fun to get back to doing things on Twitch, and I'd love to celebrate Ultraman on Twitch. Twitch.tv/MonsterKidRadio is where we stream things. And one thing that we've been trying to do lately is creating like 7, 8, 9-hour loops of movies and programming that I can just kind of set and forget, hit play, and let people tune in and watch this stuff whenever they want for free, chat it up in the chat room, maybe invite some of your friends online to watch some of this stuff together. I'm planning on doing some more of that this upcoming weekend, so stay tuned for that. I probably won't be around, though, online for a lot of that on Saturday because I'm going to Mad Monster Party, Phoenix, Arizona with Beth because one of you gifted us passes for Beth and I to go to Mad Monster Party here in Phoenix. We're going to be going on Saturday, July 12th. You can learn more about Mad Monster Party at madmonster.com/AZ25. It's happening at the Renaissance Phoenix Glendale Hotel. On Saturday, I don't know when we're going to be there, but we're going to try to get there for most of it. The doors open and things happen from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm excited. Is there a lot of classic content here? You know what? Pam Grier is going to be there. And Pam Grier's done some pretty cool movies, man. Plus, Adrienne King's going to be there. She was in the first Friday the 13th. I'm hopeful to network. I'm excited to meet people. And if you are going to be there, I'm excited to meet you as well. So make sure you look us up. We'll be there. And I'm kind of hard to miss. I'm like 6'4", 350 pounds. I'll be wearing a Hawaiian style shirt. And I'll probably be one of the guys who looks like he's having the most fun in the room. And to the person who gifted us passes to go, I know I haven't sent you an email yet. That's happening later this week. But I want to say thank you. So, thank you. Also, Mike R. is going to be sending us some recordings from Monster Bash, the classic horror convention that just happened in Pennsylvania recently. He's got some recordings that I actually need to go on to his online storage system and download. I haven't done that yet. I'm going to do that this week as well. And yeah, we're going to have some Monster Bash coverage coming up, but not until August. Because July, darn it, it's KaiJuly, and we're doing kaiju movies and content all month long here on the podcast. I've got in the works right now a Gamera Roundtable podcast conversation panel thing in the works. I've got some people that I'd like to reach out to get onto the show to talk about the first Gamera film and maybe compare it to the Americanization of that Gamera film. We're going to do it over Zoom. If you are interested in being part of that roundtable conversation, email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Let me know your availability and confirm whether or not you can do something on Zoom with a camera and a microphone, because I'd love to make that happen and include as many people as I possibly can and make that an upcoming episode here on the show. I do have that Pick Your Poison episode in the works as well. Now, Pick Your Poison is something that I've been wanting to do on the show for quite some time. I want to do a quiz show, a game show style show, but I want to keep it still within the realm of classic monster movies. Well, Brian Clark's favorite movie is the original Godzilla. So I designed a quiz show around Godzilla, and if it turns out okay and y'all like it, I will write some more episodes of Pick Your Poison and invite other Monster Kid Radio irregulars onto the show to, well, test their knowledge of their favorite monster movies. Cool? Cool. You can learn everything you need to know about Monster Kid Radio online. One place you can do that is monsterkidradio.net. Now, here you're going to find links to everything we talked about here on the show. You're going to find our links to most of our social media outlets. You're going to find our contact information. monsterkidradio@gmail.com, and our voicemail line is 360-524-2484. You're going to find our Amazon affiliate link. You can click on that if you're going to go shopping on Amazon and then pick up whatever you need to. And I know Amazon Prime quote-unquote day, even though it's like 4 days now or whatever, is coming up. If you are going to shop on Amazon, please consider using the Amazon affiliate link that we have on our website. It's hard to miss. It literally says Monster Kid Radio affiliate link. It is a silhouette of the Frankenstein monster with the Amazon A in the middle of it. And it's going to help us out if you shop on Amazon and go through that link first before you start putting things into your cart and then check out during that same visit. It'd be really helpful. You're going to find links to our Discord, Reddit, Twitch, YouTube, and our Patreon. Patreon.com/MonsterKidRadio is where you're going to want to go for that if you want to go there directly. You can follow us on Patreon for free. You do get notified of all of our free postings, including show notes that we're going to be putting over there as well. You can become a patron, though, and that helps out tremendously here behind the scenes. And while I haven't posted a House of Monster Kid Radio video, I have been slowly uploading some of the videos that I show on the Twitch stream. And what's special about that is that I go in and I do a little bit of work to these movies. I try to clean things up. I try to make the pictures look a little bit better. I try to make it sound just a touch better. So you're getting a specific Monster Kid Radio enhanced version of the movie if you become a paying patron over at patreon.com/MonsterKidRadio. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Low Tide, High Tide is copyright 2023. The Tentakills is from their album Rage of Aquarius. You can find them at taboorecordings.bandcamp.com or look them up on Facebook. You can find out more about their upcoming show at Scoop Waukegan 2025 on Saturday, July 12th over on their Facebook page. Check them out. Let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name is Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week when we do some more kaiju stuff. Screonk. Ciao.